He stood on the edge of the roof. It was night. There was a lantern next to him. He didn't know what he should do now. Then someone lightly touched his head. He fell to his knees and covered his head with his hands. She started apologizing and saying that he would definitely get the money for them. Seyoung stood behind him. She looked at him sadly and asked how. He, without getting up from the ground, told her not to worry about him. She asked again, since when did he become like this? He yelled that he was a coward. Let her just leave him alone. She called his name and he stood up but still had his back to her. He told her to stop pretending to care about him, he was sick of it, and stop her following him around or he'd kill her. He turned around and walked away and she got angry and yelled, "Let him die then." She can't believe she called him her friend. The next day, Hanul sat at her desk by the window and ate. All of his classmates sat far away from him and whispered. While bringing another spoonful of rice to his mouth, someone hit him hard on the head. This made him fall face down into the rice. Behind him was a tall blonde man who said to forgive him because there was a fly on his head. Lifting his head from the table, Hanul replied that it was okay, he was fine, but then the blonde guy hit him on the head again and he fell face first into the food again. Laughing, the guy said that fly had landed on his head again. Just then, a voice came from the doorway and asked if the guy was having fun. It was Daichun who smirked and said, "Friends taking care of each other, what a beautiful scene." But what was that? It's a fly again. He raised his hand above the guy's head and was about to hit him when suddenly someone intercepted him with both hands. It was Seyoung who held his hands and confidently asked, "Do they really think they're so tough just because they bully the weak?" With his other hand, Daichun started to get under the girl's jacket, and the girl quickly pulled away from him, yelling, "What is he doing?" He smirked and arrogantly asked why she suddenly stopped. He replied that even if they pretended to be strong, to her they would still be a bunch of weaklings rubbing their ego. If they continued to bully him, she would report him to the police. The blonde started calling her a psycho bitch and telling her to call her police. They'll see who dies first. People like her should be slaughtered for normality in general. He raised his hand and wanted to hit her, but then Daichun stopped him, saying that you shouldn't have that kind of behavior among friends, right? The blonde was surprised and asked why. The brunette stated that the lessons were over. Blondie was surprised when they walked out into the hallway. He asked why he just left her like that. Daichun asked him, wasn't he hungry? He was suddenly hungry and he needed something more exciting. It was already night outside. Hanyul walked home through the dark alleys where there were occasional streetlights. Seyoung followed him. The boy stopped and said he told her not to follow him. She should stop worrying about him and let her go home. She replied that she should worry about him because the day he saved her in that river was the day her father started molesting her. But suddenly a complete stranger started caring about her. That's when she found the strength to move on with her life. For her, he became a substitute for her father, so she was able to socialize more freely with other people. She won't give up on him even if he thinks it's none of her business. So he could just rely on her and together they would end this bullying. He asked what he should do. They are threatening his little sister, so what will she tell him to do? If he doesn't fight back, he'll be fine. They won't hurt anyone and neither will she. He turned back but saw a girl there. He wondered where she had gone. He heard a scream and he shouted, "No," himself. An alley of high construction site. The guys surrounded the girl who was lying on the ground. She was screaming for them to let her go and remove their hands. Daichun knelt between her butt and asked. She didn't think they would just leave her alone, did she? He ordered the others to grab her arms and legs. The girl kept screaming to be let go. Do they still call themselves human? Daichun got angry and said she was yelling too much, then told the guy standing next to her to take off his socks. The guy was surprised, but did as he was told. Daichun took his socks and twisted them into a ball and wrinkled his face, telling him to be his own feet at least once in a while. He looked at the girl and started bringing the ball of socks toward her, telling her that if she'd just shut up and start moaning, things would be a lot easier. He put the socks in her mouth and she twisted her head around and mooed. The other guys held her legs and arms. Someone held her head and stuck out his long tongue. Tears rolled from her eyes. Just then, a voice came from behind, shouting to stop. Hanul ran towards them with a stick in his hands, but the blonde man who had bullied him during the day was the first to strike his back with another stick. Seyoung managed to spit out his socks and yelled his name. Hanul started coughing and shaking, tried to get up. Daichun jumped with laughter and said that was something. Crying and reaching out to the girl, Hanyul said that he was doing everything they said. Why are they doing this? Daichun put his huge palm on the girl's face, looked at the guy and asked what kind of questions. Let him think for himself. Why can't he eat when he wants to? Then he turned to the girl again. She started screaming that she was sorry. She begged them not to do it. He grabbed the socks that had fallen out and said, "Look at her. Does she even know how hard it was to put that stuff in her mouth? And she spit it out too." He held her jaw with one hand and slapped her with the other. Hanul, screaming, asked for it to stop, but the blonde man sitting on his back covered his mouth with a rag. Daichun laughed and told him to hold him tight so he wouldn't miss a scene. He started to get his hand under the girl's skirt, then he pulled down her panties. Hanul kept mooing, but he could see the guys holding his girlfriend's arms and legs, and Daichun had already pulled down his pants. He cradled the girl's head in the ground. She was crying and looking at her friend. And the man couldn't take it anymore and screamed loudly. There are many reasons why you might be bullied. Lack of social skills, different appearance, different life situation. There are some people who have everything and others who have nothing. But in between, there will always be the group that is bullied by others. As for his situation, he's just an idiot. He wants to be strong. But even if he wants to become strong, he doesn't have that opportunity. He doesn't even know what it means to fight, and his only idea was pretty ridiculous, but still. Hanul came to a kickboxing club. But there he was told that their gym had already finished selecting among those who wanted to join. When he came out of there, the men wondered why it was that all their students said they would quit if he joined. Another man added that they were already short of students. Everywhere he went, he received only rejection. It was as if he had turned into an insect. There was nothing a man like him could do.